English Learning Podcast.
From Easy English with Class.
Okay, picture the scene. It's, I don't know, a Tuesday, you're at some kind of social thing, maybe a dinner party, maybe just, you're at the coffee machine at work. You're just trying to kill 5 minutes. You're holding your lukewarm coffee, feeling pretty normal, talking about the weather, the usual stuff. And then someone, they look you right in the eye and they ask the question.
Oh, no.
So now, do you work out? Or what do you do to stay healthy?
The absolute worst. It is the classic deer in the headlights moment.
Right. And it's not that you don't do anything. You walked the dog this morning. You went to the gym last week, maybe. You definitely ate a salad at some point. But in that split second, your brain just, it completely freezes.
Total panic.
Total panic. And you end up saying something so awkward like,
Yeah.
yes, I do sport sometimes.
And then there's that horrible stretching silence. The conversation just withers and dies right there. It's so brutal because it's such a simple question, but it feels like a high-stakes test.
Exactly. You feel like you just failed being a normal human 101.
Wow. And that is what we are fixing today. We're doing a deep dive into this really fascinating piece of source material.
That's great.
Now, on the surface, it looks like a guide called How to Talk About Your Health and Fitness Routine, and it's kind of framed for English learners. But, and this is why we picked it, when you actually get into it, it's basically a masterclass in, social engineering.
That is the perfect way to frame it. I was reading through this, and level 1 is vocabulary learning words like cardio or whatever. But the subtext, the deeper layer, is all about the psychology of a casual conversation.
Right.
It deconstructs how to sound competent and confident without, oversharing, which is a very fine line.
Or sounding like a walking medical textbook.
Which is so boring. So our mission today is to decode this. We are going to master something the source calls the FATR formula, which honestly feels like a cheat code for talking to people. We'll get into the vocabulary buckets and, really importantly, the boundaries. Because let's be honest, sometimes how's your diet is a question you just do not want to answer.
Right. And you need a polite way to tell people to just back off. It's about controlling the narrative of your own life. You don't owe anyone your entire medical history.
Okay, so let's start with attention. Why is this topic, fitness, health, why is it so hard to talk about? Why do we all freeze up?
Well, the source breaks this down into three pretty distinct barriers that cause that anxiety. And the first one is just vocabulary overload.
Oh, yeah.
The fitness world is drowning in jargon. It really has its own dialect.
It really is. You walk into a gym and it sounds like a different language.
Exactly. You've got people throwing around cardio, strength training, HIIT, macros, warming up, cooling down. If you don't live in that world 24/7, just trying to pick the right word for what you do it's stressful. You start overthinking it.
I do that all the time. I'll think, okay, I walked the dog for 3 miles. Is that cardio or is that just walking? If I say cardio, am I lying?
Yeah.
If I say walking, do I sound lazy? You get stuck.
That's hurdle number 1. But the second barrier is cultural context, which I think is even more interesting.
Yeah.
In some cultures, your health is super private. You'd only talk about it with your doctor. But in others, like, say, the US or the UK, it's just standard small talk.
Yeah.
So you have this inner conflict. Is it normal to share this, or am I making everyone really uncomfortable?
It's that fear of oversharing. You don't want to be the person who treats a dinner party like a therapy session.
Precisely. And then there's the third barrier, which is more of a linguistic trap. The source calls it the native language style trap.
This is where direct translation just completely fails.
Completely. The source highlights phrases like, I made exercise, or I went training. Grammatically, you can kind of see the logic, but to a native English speaker, they just sound clunky. They signal, I'm not quite fluent here.
I made exercise. Always sounds to me like you went into a workshop and literally built a little sculpture called exercise.
It communicates the idea, sure, but it breaks the rhythm. And casual conversation is all about rhythm. If you break the beat, it gets awkward.
Speaking of rhythm, there was another thing in the notes that really got me. The Goldilocks problem. This isn't about the words you use, but how much you say.
Oh, this is so crucial. When someone asks about your routine, most people go to one of two extremes. The too cold answer is just yes, or I go to the gym.
Which is an answer, technically, but it's a total conversation killer. It gives the other person nothing. It's like you caught the tennis ball and just put it in your pocket.
Exactly. But the too hot answer is almost worse. That's when someone just launches into it. Well, I wake up at 3:45 a.m., I drink raw egg whites, I do 50 burpees, I track my macros on 3 different apps.
And you just see the other person's eyes glaze over. They were just being polite. They didn't actually want your entire life story.
You need the just right answer. You need enough detail to be interesting, but you have to be concise enough to keep the conversation moving.
Which brings us to the hero of our story today, the solution. The source material gives us this acronym, FATR. It sounds a bit like a secret agent code. Walk us through it. What is FATR?
It's a remarkably efficient little framework. The whole idea is that one perfectly balanced sentence can have 4 parts. Frequency, activity, time, and reason. Hit all 4, and you've nailed it.
Okay, let's break that down. F is frequency, so how often?
Right.
A is activity, what you actually do. T is time, how long. And R is reason, the why.
And if you combine those, you give a complete little narrative in like 10 seconds. It stops the other person from having to ask a million follow-up questions.
Okay, let's use the model sentence from the source because seeing it in action really helps. It goes, I work out 3 times a week.
That's your frequency.
I usually go for a run for 30 minutes because I want to stay healthy.
And that's the reason. Now look at what that sentence did. It prevented all those awkward follow-ups. You didn't just say, I run, which forces them to ask, oh, how often? You just gave them the whole picture. It sounds confident.
It really flows. It sounds like you have your life together.
Yeah.
But for this to work, we need the actual words to plug in. So let's look at frequency and time first, because I feel like people get stuck here.
The source has some good staples every day, once a week. But I really like their suggestion of using most days.
Most days. I love that. It's such a great phrase. I use it for everything. I eat salad most days.
It's flexible. It doesn't commit you to being perfect. If you say, I work out every day, and then they see you on your couch on a Tuesday, you feel like a liar. Most days gives you an out. It implies you're consistent, but not obsessed.
Casual, but committed. And for time, you've got in the morning, after work, that kind of thing. But the real meat of this is the A, the activity. And the source categorizes fitness into 3 main pillars, or buckets.
Right. These are the 3 buckets you need to know. Number 1 is cardio.
So this is all the heart and lung stuff.
Exactly. Heavy breathing, endurance. So the key phrases are things like use the treadmill, ride a bike, use swimming, or go for a run. If you're moving and sweating, it's probably cardio.
Simple enough. Okay, bucket number 2.
Strength training. This is all about muscles and resistance. The vocabulary here is more specific. Lift weights, use dumbbells, do squats, do push-ups.
So when I lift a heavy box, that's not cardio.
Nope, that's strength training. And there's a specific note in the source about the word core. That's become a huge buzzword.
Huge.
Yeah, and it's important to know it just means your abs, your lower back, that whole middle area. But saying, I'm doing core exercises makes you sound like you know what you're talking about.
It sounds a lot better than I'm exercising my tummy.
Please don't ever say that. Tummy is for kids, stomach is for doctors, core is for fitness. It's a small change, but it really affects how people see your level of expertise.
That's a great rule of thumb. Okay, what's the 3rd bucket?
Mobility and flexibility. This is all about how you move. So, I stretch, do yoga, and the 2 most important bookends of a workout. Warm up first and cool down after.
Cool down is such a good phrase. It implies it's part of the process. You're not just stopping, you're recovering.
And speaking of process, the source also touches on intensity. You don't want to sound like you're bragging, but you want to be accurate.
The source had a good range here. You can say it's moderate, which is a nice neutral word, or it's hard. But I really like the phrase, I push myself a little.
I push myself a little. It's perfect. It shows you're putting in effort, but it doesn't sound like you're trying to be an Olympian. It's relatable.
Yeah.
It says, I try, but I'm not a maniac.
Okay, so let's go back to FATR. We have to talk about the R. The reason, this is my favorite part, because this is where the conversation gets deeper than just, I want to look good.
Yes, the source really pushes for these internal motivations. It's a big shift in perspective. Instead of focusing on aesthetics, which can sound a little vain or invite judgment, the source suggests things like, I want to have more energy.
Or I'm trying to reduce stress. I want to sleep better.
Exactly.
I want to sleep better. That is so universal right now. If someone said that to me, I'd immediately relate. I wouldn't judge them. I'd probably ask, hey, is it working?
That's the power of the reason. It connects you to the other person. Saying, I'm training for a race is cool, it's a specific goal, but saying, I want more energy, that's a lifestyle value. It invites them to share their own struggles. It opens a door.
And speaking of lifestyle, the source makes a great point that health isn't just about the gym. It broadens the whole conversation to daily habits.
This is so important for anyone listening who maybe doesn't have a gym membership but still wants a good answer. You don't have to lie. You can talk about food. The source uses phrases like, I'm trying to eat healthier, or cooking at home more.
Cutting down on sugar. Balanced meals was another good one. I feel like balanced is such a safe, positive word. It doesn't sound like some miserable diet.
It implies thoughtfulness. It says you're managing, not restricting. And then you've got hydration and just general movement. Carrying a water bottle, or the classic 10,000 steps a day.
10,000 steps. That's become the universal language of modern health, hasn't it? Like a cult we all joined by accident.
It really has. It's just shorthand for I'm active. If you say, I try to get my steps in, everyone gets it. And finally, you have sleep and recovery. Phrases like listening to my body and taking a rest day.
I love rest day. It sounds so professional. You're not being lazy on the couch. You are taking a strategic rest day.
It reframes doing nothing as part of the process. It's very savvy. It turns being passive into something proactive.
Okay, so we've got the formula, the vocabulary, the reasons. But here's where it gets tricky. What if you just don't want to talk about it? What if that person gets a little too nosy and asks, so how much weight have you lost?
This is the social boundary section of the source. And honestly, it's maybe the most valuable part. It gives you what I'd call the polite no. You have to shut down the question without killing the vibe.
So what are the actual phrases? Because you can't just say, none of your business at a work party.
You could, but it might not go over well. The source has some great alternatives. One is just, I'm just trying to be healthier. It's vague, it's positive, and it basically ends that line of questioning. There's nowhere for them to go from there.
I also liked, I'm keeping it simple.
I'm keeping it simple.
Oh.
That's brilliant. It just signals there are no juicy details here for you. Please move along.
It closes the loop.
Yeah.
What about the direct numbers questions? Like about your actual weight, which is just rude.
For that, the source suggests either the direct approach, I'd rather not talk about my weight, or this really powerful line, I'm focusing on my habits, not numbers.
Ooh. Focusing on my habits, not numbers.
That is such a mic drop moment.
It makes you sound so enlightened.
It really does. Like you've reached a higher plane of existence. It asserts a whole philosophy. It says, my health is a process, not a statistic. And it teaches the other person how to talk to you. You're setting a boundary.
So we have the tools. Now let's put them into practice. The source gives a few real-life scenes. Let's start with the coworker scenario.
Right. At work, you want to keep it light, professional. You're not going to talk about your sweat levels. So the source suggests focusing on energy and stress. If a coworker asks, you might say, yeah, a few times a week. It really helps me reduce stress.
It's relevant to the workplace, but it's not TMI. It keeps things friendly but firm.
Exactly. Then you have the friendship scenario. This is more about making plans. Like, hey, I'm trying to get my steps in when I go for a walk later.
That's great. You state your goal and you invite them to join. 2 birds, 1 stone.
And finally, the gym chat. This is all about being brief. You're there to work. So the source suggests short, practical things like today is strength day or just doing legs.
Quick, to the point, then headphones back on. Do not make eye contact.
Precisely. It's functional.
Okay, before we wrap up, we have to cover the what not to do. The source has a list of specific quick fixes. These are the little grammar mistakes that immediately flag you as not quite in the know.
The big one, and I hear this all the time, is I do sport.
I do sport. It just sounds a little off.
In English, we just don't really use the singular sport that way for personal fitness. You'd say, I play sports. If you play like soccer or tennis or just, I work out, I do sport. Sounds like a direct translation from another language.
What about I go gym?
Another really common one. You're missing a preposition. It has to be I go to the gym. You wouldn't say I go office, right? You need a to. So it's a small detail, but it makes a huge difference.
Right. And the one we mentioned earlier, I made exercise.
Yes. We don't make exercise in English. We just exercise or we do exercise. Honestly, I exercise or I work out is always your safest bet.
I work out. Simple, punchy, it works for everything.
Everything from lifting weights to yoga, it is the universal term. When in doubt, just say, I work out.
So let's just step back for a second. We've gone through the anxiety, the FATR formula, the vocabulary, the boundaries. What does this all really mean?
I think if you connect it all, it's really about confidence. The FATR formula: frequency, activity, time, reason. It isn't just a grammar rule, it's a structure for telling a story. It lets you take control of the narrative about your own body and your own time.
And what I love about it is that it applies to literally everyone. You don't have to be some kind of super athlete. You can just walk for 20 minutes a day and use the formula. I walk every day, F, around my neighborhood, A, for 20 minutes, T, just to clear my head.
And suddenly that sounds like a legitimate, respectable routine. You sound like someone who's intentional. You're not just walking, you have a regimen.
Exactly. It's not about how much you're doing. It's about how clearly you communicate your intent. It makes the mundane feel intentional.
And just remember, having those polite no phrases in your back pocket means you never have to feel cornered. You decide how much you share. You're the architect of the conversation.
So to everyone listening, next time someone asks you that question, what do you do to stay healthy?
Don't panic. Don't stare into your coffee. Just think FATR: frequency, activity, time, reason. You've got this.
It's a tool for connection, not just for giving information.
You know, there's a final thought I want to leave everyone with, something that really stuck with me from that reason section. We talked about shifting the language you use from weight to things like energy or stress.
Yeah, that shift from an external metric to an internal feeling.
Right, and it makes me wonder, if you change your language about health, does it actually change your relationship with your own body? If you start telling people, I'm trying to lose 10 pounds, and you start telling them, I'm training for energy, do you start treating yourself differently? Maybe a bit kinder.
That is a profound question. Language absolutely shapes our reality. If you define your routine by how it makes you feel instead of how it makes you look, you might just find that the routine itself becomes a lot more sustainable. You're not punishing yourself anymore, you're powering yourself. Something to think about on your next walk or run or strategic rest day. Thanks for deep diving with us.
Stay healthy out there.
And keep talking. We'll see you next time.